Rocket Launchpad. And now, here's Johnny.
Hey, it's Johnny Rocket here at the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, launching ideas in your direction. Northwest only rock and roll libertarian radio show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Kurt Nelson.
Yes, sir.
Voice of Reason, Heather Nixon.
Hey.
And I'm here with our very special guest, the director, editor, writer, he does it all, Mr. Colin Gunn from his new movie, Wait Until It's Free.
Woo!
Yeah!
Well, I'll tell you one thing. In terms of the way we do our movies, in contrast to Michael Moore, so here's, another documentary filmmaker, and I actually like Michael Moore. I think there's something, he's got a real talent, but he just plays to his crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the most, he makes these films that are essentially comedy films, mocking, the conservatives. And he does a good job. I agree with some of the things he said, and I admire him as a filmmaker. Our job, though, as a filmmaker, and the kind of work I'm in, is
right.
I feel I have to be winsome. I have to, and I think you guys have this as well. And the libertarians are good at this. I think that's sort of our job, the be nice policy of the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
You go out there, and you're different, and so you can talk to the people on the left and talk to people on the right, and there's a sense where you're trying to pull them your way. But if you act like the most talk radio, now I'm fine with explosive rhetoric and being controversial and all that stuff. But really, purposefully, when we make these films, we assume the very best of our audience. We don't want to patronize people. We want to just talk to them like a lawyer pitches to the jury, and that's how I always see it. That you get that last point. You got to make this a last speech to the jury. You don't know who they are. You don't know which way they're going to go, but it's your job to win them, and that's what we try and do with these films. And we've had the exciting part of that is we've seen people that are across the spectrum start to understand the issues that we're presenting in our film, and that's our goal, really.
And I think it's important that we take a step back. Nobody thinks liberty is cool. Everyone thinks it's, that stuff doesn't work. That was a bunch of white old guys back in 1776 and blah, 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 blah. I think it's important. I think those guys had it right. Those guys' ideas were the most progressive and the most thought-provoking ideas that have ever been developed. And we have been ignoring this for the last 200 years. Rather, the last 100 years.
I think part of the problem is that it should be something by now that we shouldn't have to worry about. But the problem is we do have to worry about it because our liberties have been taken away. Our freedoms are not slowly, they're quickly, being abolished. Though it's not fun to talk about when with, whatever your particular thing is.
Your gig.
It's pertinent.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we are trying to do with our films is, as I said, win people over, and it's you're often introducing people's to the idea of liberty for the very first time, and that's a surprise for us. You and I, who talk all day about liberty, so we have to remember that we are out there in the real world. A lot of people you talk to, they just have no idea, and that when people watch our films, I sometimes watch them, they're just staring at it. They've never heard any of the things that we've mentioned, and I've been sitting on these projects for years, thinking about them before we even actually make them.
Right.
And then it takes us 2 years to make them, and then we're presenting it, and it's for the very first time. And it's often mind-blowing to them, the thought, as I said, the insurance model, I've never thought of any alternative to that.
Right.
So we have a film on education, and we present the idea that you
indoctrination.
Question the use of government schools are maybe not the best opportunity for you to send your child.
Right.
Things like that are wildly contrarian, but then you look, 100 years ago, no one used insurance for healthcare, and very few people, or maybe 150 years ago, used the public school system. So the minority position of people like me was actually the majority when America was questionably maybe better.
Right.
Had a better system in place. So, that's where we have this. That's the reason why, as libertarians, we go out there and we have to be winsome, because we have to understand that people we're talking to, you got to be gentle with the people that haven't heard this before. Now, if I go meet a socialist who knows exactly what libertarian is and rejects it, I'm going to go to town on that person.
Right.
War. And
it's
that's
war.
when you're sitting in the pub with your buddies and you can go at it. But the other people, the average person you meet, you got to be careful. You got to win them over. And that's what we try and do in our films. We try and persuade slowly. The other aspect of documentary films is that you're bringing evidence. It's not my opinion. Like most talk radio, it's punditry. It's just, ideas, and it's, bombastic. And okay, there's a place for all of that. But in our films, we have to bring the evidence. And the evidence isn't my opinion. I can be, as you know, being on your show, I can be a real blowhard. But the evidence comes from the people we interview, eyewitnesses who have experienced something, and we tell their story.
Absolutely.
And then we bring the expert story. And that's how documentaries work.
Your stuff is backed up by truth. I think your movie was fantastic. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to watch it. Anyways, are you ready to play the Rocket Fire?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to do the Rocket Fire. The Rocket Fire consists of 10 questions. We're going to ask you 1 to 10, and I'm going to give you a list of 10 questions. And are you ready to play?
Yeah, I'm ready.
First question. Do you think we have white privilege?
I think there is a disadvantage historically to the black community from slavery. I don't think it's anything that can be corrected by law. So I have sympathy for my black brothers out there who have had a legacy of disadvantage based on historical reasons, but I don't think it's enough for them to be, seek reparations or whatever. I think it's something that in history will deal with and time will deal with.
Do you think Congress is like two drunks arguing over the bar bill on the Titanic?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I never thought that. I don't like the two-party system. I think it's the same thing in the UK. We have another party stuck in there, which doesn't help too much either, but there is a disadvantage with both sides. Arguing, debating, and as with our movies, we cut around a lot of the politics because we don't think it's the most relevant way to deal with the issues. And also, we believe that most solutions come through personal responsibility rather than political reform.
What has happened to masculinity in the modern times?
Our film, Act Like Men, deals with this idea of the decline of masculinity. And I think it's a matter of our understanding of proper roles. Now, we have to get philosophical there. Are men and women different? Well, fundamentally, as a Christian, I would say, yes, the Bible does set up a difference, and they're created differently. And so men have different responsibilities as women, but of course, the Bible says, points to the idea of that they complement each other, and there's problem when men act like women and women act like men, and so there's multiple issues involved there. But yeah, men need to act like men. It's an important thing that we're the ones that open the doors and stand up and look after our women. I hate if that's offending a few feminists, but that's the truth. We want to be good men. The worst kind of men, we want to look after women, look after our kids, and be responsible people.
Who will build the roads without the government?
I think any old person can. I get in a lot of trouble saying this. I said to a policeman the other day, anyone can police, and his head just exploded. I said, anyone should be able to police. And I think roads are relative. They're flat and they're long. How hard can it be? I've seen the people building them. And it looks, they've got some skill, but I don't know. There's much harder job for them. A road is a road.
Right.
It hasn't changed. And the road hasn't changed in 100 years. In fact, maybe we could argue 2,000 years. Right. More or less the same thing. So, with technology, anyone can build a road.
Should it be illegal for police to search automobiles without a warrant?
We shouldn't have the police.
Okay.
We shouldn't have a police force.
Okay.
So the police, I believe the police should be an entirely private function.
Okay.
If the only time we can maybe have a police force is, for bringing people to a court to be punished. But apart from that, the police shouldn't exist.
Okay.
I don't like the police.
The police, right?
I was going to say that. But yeah.
Can healthcare be neutral in a free market?
Did you say healthcare can be neutral
Yes.
in the free market? The issue with healthcare is that it is a morally loaded issue. And that's part of my reason why I think healthcare should be completely in the free market, because everyone has a different view of what healthcare is. To give you an obvious example, someone might think that transgender operations are part of healthcare entitlements, and that's what we're seeing in the UK, where sex change operations. You can also include abortion and contraception. Obviously, there's people that don't want that as being part of healthcare, and that's why the free market would best serve that purpose. Otherwise, you have people paying for things that they would never want. That was essentially what Hobby Lobby was about. people that don't use or believe in contraception, or it's actually a specific type of contraception, being forced to pay for it for their employees. And that goes against liberty. That's a bad idea. And that's when it gets very messy and very dangerous.
What do you think of barter and trade?
Barter and trade, well, a good thing. I mean, as a Scotsman, I'm always going to negotiate you on.
Right on. Right on.
And so, yeah, I like a lot of that concept. We're tied to the dollar, which is a problem. There's alternatives to that, which I'm very interested in. And bartering, and it's part of healthcare too. And we mentioned it in the film. And one of the fun parts of the film is there's a doctor who gives medical services, and there's a guy that comes in who is very sick, he's cancer, but he pays the doctor in chicken eggs. He gives the doctor chicken eggs.
Yeah,
and receives medical
totally
services.
remember that. Yeah.
And I love that. That's great.
Yeah, totally. How was religious rights protected in the Constitution?
Oh, the Constitution, I'm not an expert in the Constitution.
Okay.
And I don't rely on constitutional argument.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's a man-made document. And I would say that there's philosophical differences in terms of how you should structure your government. And libertarians would start maybe with self-ownership. The Christians have a similar view of self-ownership, but we believe in self-stewardship. I mean, you're created, so you're responsible. You're also answerable to God for what you do with your property and all the rest of it.
Okay.
I would believe that the Bible gives us the best rule of law, better than evolutionary theory, better than secular humanism. And so that's where I come from. I would argue that that's the best model for government. And so I say we should look at that as our first rule of law. What does the Bible say? And it's a weird thing for some people to hear.
I think it's your opinion, my friend, and I think that's great, and that's what you believe in. Do you believe in the voucher system, and if families get to choose where they send their kids to school?
I'm not a fan of the voucher system for the reason that it's essentially crony capitalism. It's actually similar to Obamacare.
Okay.
When money goes to a private entity, and instead of medical services, we're talking about private schools. I think what it will actually do is similar to what happened in healthcare, which will inflate the prices of these private schools. The private schools start getting these big dollar amounts from the government, because the government's shelling out $7,000 to $15,000 a year. Vouchers, it sounds like a good idea, but it's a form of restriction. When the government tells you where you can spend your money and how you can spend your money, I have a problem with that. I think the best way is to not have the public schools and have a free market in education.
What should Americans do in regards to charity? Is charity the way to help the unfortunate?
Charity is essential to our argument in the film Wait Till It's Free. You have the Randian libertarians who would be focused on, if the free market can solve all our problems. I don't think that is true. I think there is a gap. And I think for Christians, the responsibility is charity through the tithe system, where you retain a percentage of your salary to give it to the church, which is involved in charitable care, but you're also obligated for your personal care of others. The Good Samaritan is the story which points us to do that, where we are responsible for those in need around us. And I think if we applied that to medical care, we would be able to fix a lot of the problems. Those that are going to genuinely not be able to afford health care in the future, even if you've got a perfect capitalist system,
right,
still going to be the poor, and we need to deal with that charity.
Rocket fire!
Well done.
Well done,
man.
sir. Colin Gunn. Now, I have a question, man. You had this whole thing about the voucher system. I'm all about free choice for a kid to get their education. And to me, it seems like a better option than the option that we have now. I don't necessarily agree with the voucher system, but I'm thinking that it could be better than, since you live in this zip code, you have to go to this school. Whereas if you had like a voucher system, you could go to whatever school they wanted to go to.
I know. I understand the concept. There is a problem with the controlling of people's wealth and directionally, and we see that with mortgage payments being deductible, creating bubbles in the housing market. We see it in medical care, where there's limitations on the types of choices that you have, and inflating prices and all the rest of it. I think there is an issue here. And when I looked at one of the bills that was about to be passed in Texas, and of course, school choice sounds like a good idea, but the usually forget to mention homeschoolers, which is what I do. So we're not getting a voucher to pay ourselves, and we're not. I think it's better to just go flat tax deduction. And the problem is why don't they do that? Why don't they just say, hey, we'll give you, a tax deduction or something like that for the number of kids that you have? I think the reason is what they want is for money to go to the people that are pushing it in Texas are all the private schools. The private schools are looking for that big handout from government. So the vouchers are going to really be a big boost to them. And so that's why they write a bill and leave the homeschoolers off the list, because they have their own self-interest. So you got to be careful when with crony capitalism. Who writes this bill? Who's pushing this bill? Who's paying for these congressmen and senators that are getting elected?
A college will get a government subsidy, right? And then you have the FAFSA. We have to sign up for FAFSA. We have to get that. So the government is guaranteeing X amount of money. So therefore, that private institution will therefore increase their prices because they have an X amount guaranteed, which therefore causes crony capitalism.
Right. So that's going to happen. That could essentially happen in the private school market, because the ones, if you're working with any company and all of a sudden they get a government contract, are their prices going up or down? Obviously, they're going up or down because they have this, contract with the deep pockets, never-ending, employer or customer rather. And so there's a disadvantage to the little guy who's chasing with less cash the services that they're trying to get. I think that could happen in private education. I'm a big supporter of private education, but I hate crony capitalism. I can see it happening.
Okay.
I think that the best situation, well, my argument really about public schools is the best thing you can do is fire all the teachers and burn all the schools down. That would be the best thing for education.
Oh, God. Okay.
Maybe we could sell them
Okay,
off.
so what would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah, ideal.
In terms of education, that's an extreme, but I really believe we should have a free market education.
Okay.
The way I see it is the brick and mortar schools are redundant because of technology. Information which you used to have to go to a building and receive, you can now get over the internet, and you can be at home in your pajamas. That's the advantage of our modern life. And no one anticipated that. It happened in our lifetime. That's the amazing thing about our lifetime. We've seen this revolution. Public schools haven't caught up to that. All of the subsidized entities haven't caught up to that. So big education, the public schools, there's opportunity for people to do things entirely differently. The homeschoolers, like us, have gone through this massive revolution, and we're almost at that tipping point of acceptance in our culture where we've proven that we can do a better job without any involvement with government. And it's been proven again and again that homeschoolers can have remarkable success in training their children without a government official standing there. Education is actually relatively simple, like medicine at some point in terms of understanding it. It's information. If you can read, you can teach your child to read. Once your child can read, they can learn anything they want. It's as simple as that. You don't need government professionals to educate your child. It's a redundant notion, and we should get away from it as soon as possible. If I know a lot of people maybe are still using the public schools. I think libertarians should be the first ones to recognize the problem with the public school system. The government, for the reason, and this is probably the most important thing I would say on this issue, and that is I believe that the government schools change the allegiance of the heart of a child from the family to the state. And I think that persists throughout that child's life because they're trained predominantly by the government, and that has everything to do with their future as they comply. And so I think the best opportunity is to protect your kids from the government, not have them anything to do with them, and not use the public schools. And that's our other film, IndoctriNation. So I hope you get the opportunity to see that at some point.
So, Colin, for those families who may be one-parent households or both parents have to work, would the void be filled with maybe co-ops or private schools then?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a homeschooler, but you can have the opportunity to buy educational services and just go out on the market. I think the choices are limited again because we don't have a free market education. We have a complete government monopoly. So our choices are limited. If we had true freedom, We would have multiple, and as I mentioned, technology would be a big part of that. I'm totally sympathetic to the story of the single mom and the difficult circumstances. I'm totally aware that it's not going to be as easy as for maybe me or some other people who have better opportunities. I also have an education myself. My wife was a teacher as well, so it's easier for us, and it's easy to just say this. But I do understand the circumstances. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is the homeschoolers that I know are not the wealthiest people in the world. They're not doing it because they're wealthy. They're doing it because they've made it their priority. So they do without the second car. They live in a smaller house and they live a different life so they can do what they do. And that's my argument for a lot of people. Are like, well, we need two incomes. Well, you might not. A lot of people we know live off the one, and they're making it happen because they want their kids to be home. And it maybe sounds a bit idealistic, but I think it's the best thing. The blessing I have. So I'm here in Colorado. I had a screening tonight. I brought 4 of my kids on this trip with me. They don't go to school, so any time I travel, I can bring any of my kids with me. Mm-hmm. They're meeting people. They man the booth and sell DVDs, and they're talking to people all night. And it's a remarkable experience, and it's life. And life in the public schools is not real life. I know we all went to public schools, I'm sure, and we know the artificial construct that is the public school system, right. From the Pavlovian bell that rings at the start of the day, sitting in rows and desks, all of it is artificial, and it needs to go away.
Anyways, man, Colin Gunn, when are you going to come to Seattle?
I am delighted to be invited to come to Seattle. I'm going to be there in the last week of April. We're setting up dates right now, so eventually on the Wait Till It's Free website, WTIP.com, you go to the events page, and we're going to list all of the events. We want as many people to come out to our events. It's great. I am there, and I just love to talk to people and hang around and just talk about the issues. I do Q&A, and so we show the movie. If you want to see, if you're interested in Wait Till It's Free, come out and see it for free. Come out and see our movie for free. We don't have any charge at the door. Just come and see the film and say hi to me. We would love to have you all come out. And so we'll publish the list. We're going to be in Bellingham. We might be in Spokane. We might be a few other places, but we're definitely going to be in Seattle. So that'll be the end in April. So
Colin, we call it Spokompton. We don't call it Spokane. It's a horrible area. Anyways, I'm joking. Spokane. We love you out there, whoever's listening. We're kidding. But yeah, man, your movie I thought it was fantastic.
I really can't wait to see it.
I thought the people you had on the movie were great. All your experts were great. You had Ron Paul on your movie. One of my heroes,
That's amazing.
Hero. I mean, and I'll tell you, Ron Paul fans need to know that he was everything we had hoped. I mean, he's like a grandfather to our kids. The last, the campaigns that he's ran, all our kids have been supporters, and we sit around and we watch Ron Paul on the television, on
awesome.
YouTube, and they love him. And so I took my boys to go meet him, and he was the gentleman. He was funny with the kids, joked around with the kids. He was just amazing. So it's good to hear that, because you always wonder, what's he like really? He's amazing. He's just as good as you'd hoped, and it was a privilege. And he's fantastic in our movie. It was just a great opportunity to meet Ron Paul.
You have a whole fire team. You have two. You have 3 fire teams actually in your family. You got 9 kids.
That's right.
Oh my God,
that's amazing.
Do a lot of damage. Libertarians.
We did a lot of damage.
Libertarians. Let's get damage to the system, sir.
That's right. And, there's a real blessing in having all these kids for our mission, just like tonight. We had all of the kids. They were helping with the booth, and they helped carry the boxes in, and they're learning a bit about economics, and they're swiping credit cards.
Nice. Nice.
So I just learned that tonight. I learned this tonight. POS.
Point of
sales. I didn't know this. Anyway, so Colin Gunn, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, man.
Thank you,
You're
Colin.
a great American, and you're a great guy, man. And I can say that.
Thank you so much. And I'm Scottish first and American second, just so you know.
Fair enough.
You're a great Scottish guy and American.
Scottish American. I love your show. I'm such a privilege to be here, and just it's been a great experience. Thank you for having me on.
And you can check him out at www.colingunn.com. COLINGUNN.com and www.WTIFree.com. and check out his movie. His movie's awesome. It's also going to be on the Launchpad website. So we're affiliates now. So
Fantastic.
you can buy his movie and rent it, and it's awesome.
Awesome.
I fucking love it.
I can't wait to see it.
It's great.
I can't
Fantastic. Hey, thank you very much, Colin. And this is Johnny Rocket here at the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, launching ideas in your direction. The Northwest's only rock and roll libertarian radio show.
In a few moments, when I sign this bill, health insurance reform becomes law in the United States of America.
The left in America has been trying for 50 years to get control of the healthcare system.
Moving towards a single-payer system could very well make sense.
I'm all for a single-payer system.
I wanted single payer.
Instead of having a single payer or a national health service style plan, it often ends up being crony capitalism.
I said, I don't know, $7,000, $8,000, and she said, no, it's $20,000.
The buyer doesn't know what the prices are and can't do anything about the prices even if he knows what the prices are.
The American system is barely capitalistic at all because there's so much distortion to the system by how involved the government already is in the whole process.
For some person to stick his Pinocchio nose between me and my patient, that person is an interloper.
The market is just begging and pleading to help out, and yet all we get from Washington is obstructionism.
When government comes up with a bad idea, there's no way to get rid of it. They don't solve the problems. Capitalism solves problems.
The long-run solution to the U.S. fiscal problem is death panels and sales taxes.
To say that there is no death panel may be naive, but I think worse than that, it's deceptive.
The people who will suffer most when the government gains control, the children or the old people, these are the ones whose care will be rationed.
Thank you, Planned Parenthood. God bless you.
If the government can tell you that you have no religion in your business, if they can take away your faith, they can take away a lot of things.
Military veterans are dying needlessly because of long waits at some U.S. veterans hospitals.
And if they died, they were just crossed off as if they had never shown up for care.
So tell me, what do you think of the National Health Service?
Rubbish.
The British have been subject to a confidence trick that their system is the best, when actually it's either the worst or amongst the worst in the Western world.
Elderly and vulnerable patients were left unwashed, unfed, and without fluids.
Governments are not very good at running things. Why should we expect them to be any better at running hospitals? Don't imagine that if you go down this road, you're going to be able to change your mind later.
We can say right now that the key issue is we do not want socialized medicine.